myself and my wife actually always joke and say we had a fantastic childhood. I think with warm weather and the lifestyle that we lived, very outdoors, playing sport, whatever sport it was. I couldn't have asked for a better childhood. My parents were great, and you know, I'm really privileged to come from the background that I do and the place that I come from, and I'll cherish that forever, really. So I didn't go to a very good rugby school. My school was alright. Not a lot of guys have sort of become professional out of that school. So I think as a young kid, you always dream of becoming a professional rugby player, but obviously in reality, it's not always that easy. But as I got a bit older, it became a bit more of a reality, and I actually was probably a better cricketer at school, but ultimately rugby was the sport I wanted to go into. I think boys are exposed to senior rugby at probably an early age. In South Africa, you have under 19s, under 21s before you hit men's rugby. So a lot of these young boys, I look around, guys like Luke James and stuff, he's 19 years old, he's got 50 caps. That's also a testament to Sale for giving young people an opportunity. But I think boys here are exposed to the top level of professionalism earlier than what South Africans are. That's got to do with probably numerous things, numbers of players, you know, different things, the way the academies are set up. But yeah, boys are exposed a bit earlier. Whether it's right, the way to do it, or why not, I'm not too sure, but it's pretty good. I actually had a stint at Quins. I got signed as academy kid at 18, and to be honest, that was an important part of probably growing up from a boy to a man type of thing. I think moving away from home into what's the big world, into a completely different environment was tough. And I cut that short actually because it was probably a bit too tough at that stage. But I grew a lot and I learned a lot about myself. And yeah, then going on to the Bulls was fantastic. Put myself in a different professional environment, which was really good. And the Bulls sort of given me a great opportunity to be where I am today. So I'm sort of indebted to them. The turning point in my career, I think probably up until I went to Sarries, I probably didn't quite know what it would take to become a professional rugby player. And I must say, Sarries, the way they are, the way they run the ship is pretty impressive. And for me, that was a real sort of wake up in terms of what you've got to do to become a professional. You don't necessarily need to be the most talented. I think I always had talent, but the other side of it is really working hard and being determined was something that they really drove into me. And I took a lot out of that experience. Met a lot of good people who I'm still friends with today. And they are the successful club they are for a reason. And you know, I think they continue with the culture that they have, their sort of foundation is there, and they ride on the back of that. I was the first ever English captain at the Blue Bulls. I was only 22. Into a difficult period, they had lost a lot of their senior players, and I sort of got thrown in the deep end. And we didn't do very well, and with the world being the way it is and social media, you're a lot more easily accessible to people, and I had to learn how to handle that, how to handle criticism of, you know, you're not good enough, you need to go elsewhere, whatever it is. So that was, for that sort of 2-3 year period, was interesting. I mean, there's nothing worse than when you get home and you can see your dad's read something on social media and how disappointed he is in what people are saying about his child, and that was tough to take. And the amount of fights I had with my old man saying stop reading this stuff, it's people who probably don't really matter. So that was difficult, and I learned a lot, and I grew a lot as a person, as a player. So you know, I always say you can never regret these situations. You just got to take them on board and grow as a leader, as a person, and as a rugby player. And I think that all these experiences have stood me in good stead going forward. Honestly, the fans are fantastic. Whether you play badly, you play well, they're there, they support you. In South Africa, the fans are a little bit more critical. If you have a bad day, you know about it, and sometimes even if you have a good day, you're still criticised. And for some reason, people are quite critical back home, probably because they're passionate or feel they have a right to be critical. But I know a lot of boys find it difficult. But again, it's, you know, you put yourself out there on social media, you got to accept the consequences that come with that, and got to be prepared to take the good comments and the bad comments. So in South Africa it was a lot worse. In England, the fans have been fantastic and a lot more supportive than probably what they were in South Africa. I had a chat with the coach Franz Luc at the time, and I just asked him sort of where my opportunities sort of lay in the next season, and he told me that I probably wouldn't play as much as I had the couple of years before, and I got a really good offer from Stade Francais, which is at that stage was a club that was fantastic, and I think it's quite an iconic club in world rugby, and it was an opportunity I couldn't really turn down. Gonzalo Cassette at the time phoned me and wanted me to come, and I took the opportunity, and it really turned out well for me. There's still an amateur element to French rugby. I think they are very emotional and they're passionate about the game, but they also enjoy the social side of it. And yeah, it's almost amateurish to an extent. But it's just, I don't know, it's a different environment, it's different, you know, their culture is so different and you've got to buy into that. So for me it was going there, living in Paris, which was unbelievable, learning the language, and again, indulging myself into a different culture, which I really enjoy, and I have very fond memories of my time at Stade Francais, and it was quite a successful period for me as well. I've never experienced a derby in rugby like that, two big clubs in the same city, and where people care so much about winning and beating an opposition. I've never experienced something, so that was fantastic, and like I said, it was a fantastic time for me. I was lucky enough to captain the side on a few times, and like I said, it's an iconic club. It's a club that's gone through a lot, and even while I was there, I mean, we had the merger between ourselves and racing. On one hand, you had people telling you it's all going to be okay, and on the other side, you had the owner telling you can go look for a contract because if he doesn't find someone, the club's going to go under. And I always had ambitions to play international rugby, and I had obviously the English ancestry, so I signed with Sale, and I think a lot of people probably had a bit of resentment for that, to be honest, because I didn't stick it out and stick with the club, and sometimes you look back and think I probably should have stuck it out, but on other times it was a very difficult period and I had to make a professional decision, and I'm very glad of the decision I made. And like I said, I've got still some good mates at Stade and some fond memories of my time there, but yeah, that time was particularly difficult. So you're sitting in meetings where it's all in French. My French was all right, but not that good, so you're trying to understand and grasp what's going on. And like I said, you're getting a lot of different messages from people, and it was a tough time. I mean, I've never been on strike in my life, and we went on strike for a week, didn't play a game, had to play double games. So it was a very interesting time. But Stade Francais is a wonderful club, different to anything I've ever experienced, in a good way. And like I said, I really enjoyed my time there, and I have fond memories of my 3 years at Stade. For me, as I said, it was putting myself into a culture that's completely different to what I'd ever experienced. It was a new language, I had to learn the language, and a new city. And I mean, me and my wife really, at times, really miss France because obsession with food, the way they are, it was a really good time. I don't know how else to explain it, just they love to eat out and just socialize a lot, and it was just a really good time. And I think Paris is probably one of the best cities in the world to live in, and to have a rugby club in the middle of that was fantastic. And as we always say, there's only one club in Paris, isn't it? And that's Stade Francais. So it was a great time, and I always say to people, if you get the chance, depending on the time in your career, I don't always know if it's the best to go when you're really young or whatever it is, but to experience that culture and that type of rugby and that type of lifestyle is something that you need to do. I came over and I had a meeting with Dimes, and I think Dimes is the most passionate person about this club I've come across. He sort of spoke to me about what Sam and Jed and Michelle and everyone else wanted to achieve, and what Sale believed they could achieve as a club, and that appealed to me. I had met Will Addison beforehand, and we spoke, and he told me that the people here are good people, and I'm a firm believer that good people make good rugby players, and I think Sale, the one thing they do have is an earthiness, and there's a lot of good people here. So that was attractive. Obviously, you know, financially it was an offer that was acceptable and something that was worthwhile, because that plays a part. And then there's things like Manchester, the city. You know, I think it's a really good city. Probably worldwide has a bad reputation, but because of the weather. it's not as bad as people say, and the city's really vibrant and there's a lot going on, and for us that was important. There's an airport just close by for travel, so there's a lot of things that sort of came into play, but really was the sort of vision that was sold to me by Simon, by Dimes, and that was important. I think you want to go to a club that's really ambitious. I think this is probably one of the more ambitious clubs around, and that was key to my signing it. So you've got to focus on each game, and knowing that if you do your best in each game and you play to sort of almost where you can play every game, that's all you can do. And if you do that, more often than not, you'll probably win games, and by winning games, you'll achieve a long-term goal. So it's important to focus on the now and not look too far ahead. It is sometimes difficult to manage being a good bloke and trying to get things, you know, to where you want them to be in terms of, I don't know, timekeeping or setting the culture that we have here, or whatever it is. Sometimes you've got to be hard on guys, but I just believe it's about treating people well. You know, sometimes guys get left out of teams, and you've got to understand the disappointment they go through. Sometimes guys make mistakes, and you've got to understand that too, and they have to have an understanding of, from my side, where I'm trying to get the team to go to as well. So I think there's a pretty good understanding with that. And it is difficult, but I must say I enjoy the role that I'm in. I've got a lot of guys around me who support me and help me, and I think I've got a good relationship with Dimes, which helps as well. I think that player-coach relationship with the captain and coach is really important, and I hope that continues. Initially it was myself and Faf who arrived, and Josh Strauss, so we were here, and I think, you know, Dimes leans on us when it comes to signings. And obviously we enjoy the club, we enjoy Manchester, we love the place really, and I think that when players ask us how it is, we sort of portray that to them, and that helps in them coming. And I guess when you have a couple, it's easier to come to people and a way, you know, for a lot of people. But I think it's important for all these guys coming in to realise that they, again, come into a different culture, a different country, a different way of life, and you've got to buy into that. You can't come here and expect people to change for you. You've got to adapt to the way Sale is, the way England is, the way, you know, it's all different to what it is in South Africa. So you've got to adapt to that, and to be fair, everyone who's come in has really bought into what we're about, and it seems to be going really well. Dimes, Scott, Johnny Leota, these guys guarded their way to make sure guys are sorted out in terms of when they arrive. They have all their, you know, ducks in a row. They get them houses and help them find whatever they need for their wives, and they really do go out of their way to make people feel welcome. The players help each other and take guys out for coffee, go out for lunch, and try and make people feel as welcome as possible, because it's not easy. When you leave a country to go to another country, it's not easy. As much as people think, you know, there's a lot of South Africans move overseas. When you leave home, leave family, it's really not an easy place, and especially for partners. As a rugby player, you rock in, you've got 30 mates. As a partner, it's not the same. So as a whole, the club do a really good job to try and make sure guys are and their families are welcome, and I think that the boys really appreciate that. If you look at the players we've brought in, I think we've added a hell of a lot of depth to the squad. I think you're not going to see guys playing 30 games because, you know, in the past we had to do that. Now, I mean, you look around the squad, there's probably 2 quality players in every position. So that allows you to hopefully compete on more fronts. We're under no illusions of sort of, you know, the challenges ahead of us. Like I said, the Premiership is massively competitive, and there's some really good teams in the Heineken Cup, and our pool is tough. But we're confident that we can compete on sort of all fronts. But again, you can never get ahead of yourself. You've got to take each game as it comes. And for me, the key thing is, as a team, as individuals, we're constantly striving to be better than what we were yesterday. And if we do that, we'll be in a better place tomorrow than what we are today. So that's really where we are. Everyone wants to play, but I think the key thing and the message that's sort of coming across is when you don't play, the most important thing is the team. So you've got to support the guys playing ahead of you. Ultimately, it's not his fault that he's got picked ahead of you, so you've got to support him. And that there's a lot of games, and it's a really compact season, so a lot of people will get chances throughout the season. And ultimately, for yourself as a rugby player going forward for longevity of career, it's better for you not to play 30 games. Probably better for you to play 20 games. And you can be fresher, there's a lot of positives that come with it. Obviously, you don't want to end up not playing, but that's where competition comes in and hopefully drives the squad to be in a better place.